Okay, so this is the Chapter 5 test. So again, wanted to go over the test with you. If your numbers are a little different, the process is exactly the same. So this is what we're going to do for the first one. Tells you how many units you sold. So what I'm going to do is find the price per unit. So I had a total sale of 207,000 and I sold 6,900 of them. So my price per unit is $30. I'm going to write that down. My variable expense, my total was 9,600, and again, I sold 6,900 of them. So my variable expense is $14 a unit. So then I'm going to take that and multiply by the company sells 7,100 units. So 7,100 times 30. So my revenue, if I sold 7,100, would be 213,000. And then my contribution margin, 7,100, my expenses would be times 14, 99,400. So I'm going to take my revenue of 213 and subtract 99,400. So 113,600. My fixed expenses are not going to change no matter how many I sell. I'm still going to subtract 87,800. So I'm going to have 25,800 as my net income. All right, let's move on to the next one. That doesn't help me. Okay, this one goes into the contribution margin ratio. Let me just show you an easier way to do this. It wants to know what the contribution margin would be if sales volume increased by 40%. I'm going to take the sales volume of 450,000 and I'm going to multiply it by 1.4. So my sales, if it increased by 40%, would be 630,000. My variable expense, again, 315,000 times 1.4 will be 441. So let's just take 630,000 minus 441. So that would be 189. Okay. So the contribution margin ratio is 19%. That means that after all expenses are paid just from the cost of the product, so let's say you're a merchandiser and you are selling bicycles. So the price of the bicycle is essentially 81% of what you're selling it for. So what we're doing here is we're going to say our sales is 319,000. The cost of our bikes is 81% of that. So we have 19% left. So we have 60,610 left after the cost of what we paid for it was. So our monthly fixed expense is 54,000, which means we only have $6,610 left. So again, this is the same concept. You had sales of 145,000. After whatever you sold costs are done, you have 61% of your sales left. So whatever it was that you sold, again, let's say bicycles, it costs you 59% of whatever you sold. So 145,000 times 0.61. So you have $88,450 left over after you paid for whatever it was that you sold. Your fixed expenses are 51,500. So you have 36,950 left. Okay. So in this one, our variable expenses are 40% of sales. That means that our contribution margin is 60%. So variable expenses are the cost of whatever it is that we're selling. So what's left over is 60%. So we are deciding if advertising that will cost 29,000 is worth it if sales increase by 79,000. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that 60% and multiply it by the 79,000 because we're not able to take that full 79,000, only the 60% of our contribution margin times 0.6. So that would be 47,400 and then subtract the cost of the advertising, 29,000. So we'd have 18,400 left. Okay, so break even. This is one of my favorite questions. So we have a selling price per unit. So we sell these items, again, let's just call them bicycles, we sell them for $170. We buy them for $66.30. So that means if we sell them for 170, we buy them for $66.30. We have $103.70 left over. Our fixed expenses per month are $127,490. So if you think about it like this, for every bike we sell, we have $103.70 left over to pay for those fixed expenses. How many $103.70 is it going to take to pay for our fixed expenses? Let's find out. 127,490 divided by 103.70, right? Yeah. It's going to take 1,229.41. And we are selling them for $170. So our revenue is going to have to be $209,000. Okay, so for this one, again, we're going to do the same thing. We sell our item for $165. It costs us $66 to buy whatever it is. Our fixed expenses are $343,260. So for every bike that we sell, we have $99 that can go towards our fixed expenses. Once our fixed expenses are sold, are paid for, then each $99 now goes to profit. So how many bikes are we going to have to sell to get that $99 to pay for our fixed expenses? So $343,260 divided by 99. We're going to have to sell 3,467, well, 8 really, and we're selling them for $165. So we're going to have to sell $572,100 worth. Okay, same concept here. We're selling them for $175. It costs us $93. So for every item that we sell, $82 is going to go towards our fixed expenses. So how many of those do we have to sell to cover our fixed expenses of $434,140, 82. So let's find out. $434,140 divided by 82. We're going to have to sell $5,294, but we also want a target profit of $22,000. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say we have $434,140 to cover our fixed expenses, plus we want $22,000 in net income divided by that $82 in our contribution margin. So we're going to have to sell $5,562.86, or 80 partial of whatever it is that we happen to be selling. So margin of safety is just the difference between your break even and how much you actually sold. So in this case, the margin of, the break even is $31,350, but they actually sold $40,800. So I'm going to take $40,800 and I'm going to subtract their break even of $31,350. So they sold 9,450 additional units, and they sold them for $120 each. So their margin of safety is $1,134,000. Okay, so your operating leverage is actually a pretty cool concept. It's substituting more fixed expenses for more variable expenses. And if you think about what's happening at McDonald's these days, that's a really good example. People are being substituted for machines because as sales increase, they don't need to pay people. They can just use machines. And so their net income will increase exponentially. But to figure that out, the formula is going to be contribution margin divided by net operating income. So let's figure out what our contribution margin is. Contribution margin, hopefully you know the formula, is just going to be sales minus your variable expenses. So your sales of $550,000, and then your variable expenses is $330,000. So your contribution margin is $220,000. Write that down. You will need it. And then your profit is just going to be your contribution margin minus your fixed expenses. So contribution margin of $220,000 minus your fixed expenses of $176,000. So profit is $44,000. So I'm going to take 220,000 divided by 44,000. So my operating leverage is going to be 5 here. So again, to find operating leverage, you're going to need to find your contribution margin, and you're going to want to find your net income. So let's find the contribution margin first. So your contribution margin is going to be your sales minus your variable expenses. So your sales, you had sales of 2080 times 50. So you had sales of 104,000. I'm just writing that down. And then your variable expenses were 25%. So I'm going to just take 104 and times 0.75. So my variable expenses were 78,000. And then my net operating income is going to be my contribution margin minus my fixed expenses of 78,000 minus 68,000. So income is 10. So let's do 78,000 divided by 10. So 7.8. Okay, so again, I'm running out of time. So I just wanted to show you some of, well, the rest of these so you could take a look at the answers here. So this is with 2 products, and you're going to have to find the sales mix. So just wanted you to look at this. So there's 12. Sorry, that's my dog making weird noises. And here's another sales mix. Okay, and contribution margin ratio. And the last one is break even. Okay. So again, go ahead and I'll let you take this again if you have not taken it, or you can finish it up if you haven't finished it for chapter 5. Okay, but use this as a guide and go ahead and finish up your chapter 5 test. Thanks.